know that when you wear bright color, people hear you more because they're not listening to them. Good morning, and thank you very much for having us here. And I thought, what should I start with? And on a relatively early morning, I decided I would start with a little joke. The Vice President of the European Commission for Budget walks on the streets of Brussels and kicks a little bottle, picks up the bottle, a genie comes out. Genie says, "Thank you so very much for liberating me. I will fulfill one wish for you." Vice President says, "You know, I have this home still in Washington, D.C., and I hate to fly. Can you please bring a bridge so I can drive from Brussels to Washington and back?" Genie says, "I have never heard such an idiotic wish. Give me another one." Vice President says, "Well, another one. We work with Mario Montii on this own resources issue. Can you make it that the EU budget as of next year is funded by genuine own resources?" Genie says, "So how do you want the bridge? You want the task that Mario is taking in his hands is definitely one of the most difficult we are going to be wrestling with in preparation for the next MFF, the next multi-year financial framework. It is the most difficult not because it is not necessary to address it. We have not looked into the system of funding the budget for a very, very long time. The last time we did it was almost 30 years ago, in 1988. And obviously, a lot has happened since then, including the share of genuine own resources in the budget has shrunk. And with this shrinking, it has created a three impact avenues. One, by the increase of GNI, which is, by the way, not necessarily bad. There are many good things about it. It has made negotiations among member states, and especially in the split between net payers and net recipients, ever more difficult, more tense. Two, it has further distanced the source of money, which is ultimately our citizens, with the European budget. In other words, it's not such a direct link. I pay and I see my contribution going into the budget for the purpose of serving me. And three, it has given, to a certain degree, admittedly not entirely, to a certain degree, ground for the complicated system of rebates, which we now have to figure out whether we can untangle. So, when we look at this, a question I have been asking myself is, why is it that this issue of own resources has not surfaced more and in a more forceful manner, since you, in your work, Mr. Montii, in his work, everybody sees that there are certain deficiencies that need to be fixed. And my personal explanation is, we need to understand these reasons in order to overcome them. My personal explanation is twofold. One, there wasn't really a major pressure on looking into the funding of the EU budget in a more serious way until virtually 2011, 2012. Why? Because the commissioners before me were very fortunate to have a very interesting problem, more money than they can possibly spend. When the budget every year ends with 300 million, 2 billion, 500 million unspent money, and when everybody's scratching their heads saying, well, you know, give me a good project so I can fund it, the pressure to look at the revenue side of the budget, of course, is much less. These days, over. As those of us who work on the EU budget know very well, we are now facing a tremendous stress coming from demands exceeding the resource availability. The second reason there has been less pressure to look at the revenue side of the budget is simply the fact that it is quite painful to do. And so the normal, what do we do in Europe when we are faced with a painful problem? We kick the can in the long grass. We move the problem for the future. And as Mr. Mario Montii would I'm sure tell us, the future is now. It has become very urgent for us to look into the revenue side of the budget in order to structure a budget that serves us in the future well. But then comes the second aspect of it. To what extent success in reforming the revenue side of the budget depends on success in reforming the expenditure side. And I would argue that these two are intimately connected. That unless we can demonstrate a substantial improvement in our alignment of budgets with priorities and the ability to demonstrate to our citizens that the value added of the budget for Europe as a whole and then of course for those who fund it is high, it would be very difficult to have any significant effective conversation on the revenue side. So my job in the last 2 years has been to serve the purpose of our group mostly by concentrating on the expenditure side of the budget. And there, what we do are 3 very important things. One, we have embraced this budget focused on results initiative in which we relentlessly pursue improvements in how we spend the budget, what we spend it for, how we account for this to our citizens. And I'm not going to take you in the details of this work. If you are interested, on the 27th of September, we will have our 2nd annual conference on budget focused on results, and you're welcome to come. Last year, we were quite amazed. I look at Andrea Dr. Schwartz, my deputy head of cabinet, of the high level and intensity of discussions in this conference, and I think it will be the same this year. The second thing we do is to be extremely disciplined in defining priorities and having priorities to drive where the budget goes. We have 2 priorities now for the budget. 1, jobs and growth. 2, dealing with migration, refugees, and the security aspects of it. And of course, people would come with all kinds of ideas, and we would always say, okay, prove that this is aligned with the priorities that we have defined. Of course, they may change, but as they change, we would force this alignment much more than it has been in the days of unlimited budget. And 3, we work very hard to define what may be a possible evolution or revolution of budget negotiations next time around. Andreas crafted this term, so I will give him credit. With the term is financial peace and equilibrium. We have in the current budget financial peace, painfully achieved, but financial peace and equilibrium of interests of the friends of agriculture, friends of cohesion, and friends of rebate. And the question is, can we move to a different equilibrium, especially now with the UK referendum, putting the question of rebate squarely in our face? And as we do that, as we move to a different equilibrium, more or less revolutionary, more or less evolutionary, and that is going to be the debate of the next years, what pragmatic steps we can take to reform the revenue side of the budget. I read your paper very carefully. We have a great deal of alignment from the work that the group that Mario leads has done on the necessity to reform the revenue side and on choice of candidates for that. It would not surprise you that as the person who is charged to take forward the negotiations on the budget, I would be very economical in telling you what I think about these candidates, because that would be the subject of negotiation the Commission would be charged to lead. But what I would tell you is that in defining the way forward, we categorically need to start from the question, budget for what? And then draw out of it the conclusion, funded how? And if we are to succeed, we will have to map out, honestly, without any illusions, the likely positions on each and everybody participating in this negotiating process. Understand these positions and work hard on the evolution of these positions so we can bring a solution in the end. I think that people would be extremely interested in seeing us succeed, because despite all of the Euroscepticism that is now so popular to support, fundamentally what I see when I go around in Europe, what I hear from people, is a degree of awareness that, never mind what fashion in politics may be, certainly in this world of very massively changing economy and overlay shocks, together in the EU we are stronger. And this togetherness is, among other things, secured by the fuel for our engine that is the European budget. So I would end on a relatively positive note, saying that there is now, for good and bad reasons, the environment for change, but that change would only happen successfully if we work tirelessly to demonstrate the value of the budget, to guarantee the value of the budget to our citizens. In other words, if the expenditure side of the budget is successful, the reform on the revenue side is very likely to happen. Thank you.